someone's already taken that journey before you. So finding someone who started something similar or in the same industry that you become a mentee of, that you can learn from, and not having to recreate some of these experiences that someone's already walked that path. There's no reason to make the same mistakes.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, and we're always here to help. Now, today we have another great guest on the podcast, Robert Hartline. And Robert went to high school on a military base in Germany, graduated high school, went to school I think in Tennessee, and then afterwards went to Tennessee after he graduated because he wanted to go into music, only to find out that he didn't like country music, which is kind of a problem given that's Tennessee was known for. So started selling phones door to door, and over a period of time opened up, I think, over 60 stores selling cell phones, had over 400 employees. Did that till about a year and a half ago. And then after about a year and a half ago, had some other side hustles that he was pursuing with assisting people with cold calls and whatnot, and decided to kind of pursue that full time. Built up some applications or software to help people do that, and have been focusing on that ever since. So with that much as introduction, welcome on the podcast, Robert.
Hey, thanks, Devin. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I just gave kind of a quick run through to a much longer journey. And so why don't we take everybody back in time a bit to when you were going to high school in Germany?
Yeah. So my dad was a music teacher on an Army base called Baumholder. And it's called the Department of Defense School Systems. And, in any foreign deployment for US based troops, they have Dodds there teaching the kids. And I just happened to be in that school. And it was definitely an interesting experience.
So you go to high school there, and you graduate, and you're going off to college. And I think you'd mentioned that you were going to go in and you studied music or music related things in school.
Yeah. But the game plan was to get in the recording industry. And just like you said, I didn't fit, right? I didn't play guitar. I didn't enjoy country music. And I just decided that I needed something new. And I tried to get a job at Holiday Inn as a bag boy, and did not get hired.
I gotta jump in just because I have one question.
Sure.
So you go through and you say, okay, I'm going to go into country music. Now, you moved all the way to Tennessee, so you obviously had intentions to do it. But help me understand, because you go into, or did you not like country music, or how did you miss that? Disconnect if you didn't like the industry or the
good catch, Devin. Really, I came to school at MTSU, which is Middle Tennessee State University. They have a great program for the recording industry, but it was really centered around a lot of country music. And, everyone was aspiring singer, songwriter. And I just wasn't, that wasn't my thing. I really wanted to get into production side of it. I wasn't looking to be a performer or anything like that. And I've never been great at school. I never enjoyed school. It just never did it for me. And, I kept going to school when I got my first job, in fact, selling phones door to door. In fact, I was in school for the first 4 years of my career until I finally said, I just don't need this school anymore. It's not serving me, and it seems like a waste of time.
Oh, okay. So it sounds like, I'll probably put words in your mouth and you can tell me that they're the wrong words, but it was less to do with the country music in and of itself, and it was more to do with the industry and doing the schooling.
It just wasn't my path. When you're in high school, your experience is so limited, right? And you just don't have the opportunities to, explore different things. You don't know what you don't know until you know. And that was my case in school for sure. But I got my first job selling a product called Telego as a cordless phone while you're away from the house. I mean, a cell phone while you're away from the house and a cordless phone while you're at home. And that was 1994 when really nobody had a cell phone, but attorneys and doctors, right? All the important people seem to have a phone. But I did that, and I got real lucky. One weekend, I got someone to buy a lot of phones, which really kind of inspired me to really lean into the sales thing.
So sounds like it kind of started out as, hey, I need employment, need a job. Here's one that will pay me, and I'll go out and sell the phones. And then as you started to gain some traction and get some success, you kind of double down, or you continue to more heavily go into that field. And I think over a period of time, you built it up to opening multiple stores and kind of continuing to drill down on that. Is that right?
Yeah. So I worked for other people selling phones for about 4 years. Then I started my company in 99. And for the last 22 years, I had been growing a chain of wireless retail stores throughout the Southeast. And really, honestly, had a really fun time. I learned a lot. The first 10 years of business, it was just me working in it. And, about that time, I had read the E-Myth. And then the 4-Hour Work Week came out similar to that time frame where I read it. And I really started getting engaged in working on the business and being very intentional about the way I worked. And instead of working in the business, obviously hiring people and scaling. And I did that for a while. And I really didn't have some accelerated growth until I'm in EO, which stands for Entrepreneur Organization. And I went to I saw Jack Daly, who wrote a book called The Hyper Sales Growth. And basically it's a book about scaling your business by hiring the right VP of sales, which I was always typically the sales leader in terms of leading the sales team. And I hired someone else to kind of lead the sales team and run that. And I was able to, scale from about 10 million a year in revenue to nearly 100 million in revenue in less than 3 years by just, following a couple of core principles. One was hiring someone else to be the VP. And then number two, I followed the EOS method, the Entrepreneur Operating System, from a book called Traction. It really helped me scale at that point.
Now you say, okay, I'm going to, and give us an idea. So when you scaled over what period of time and to how big did you get?
We got just at 10 million. We were 10 million to 100 million in sales in less than 3 years. I ended up selling the business last December. It was, there was a merger that happened, and we were on the losing side of a merger, which meant we needed to sell the business. Which, in hindsight, I think I'm gonna call it a good news story down the road. But today I'm a little bit frustrated how it panned out. But that's how business runs sometimes, right?
No, I think that that makes sense, and timing is always, it's always in the timing. So now you grew the businesses, you got to a pretty good amount of scale. You looked at bringing on the right team members and otherwise getting that in place. And for quite a while, you had a large amount of stores, and you were running a pretty good empire, so to speak. Now, at one point, it sounds like you were running or doing also a bit of a side hustle for cold calling and building up some of that. What kind of, or how did that start out? And then how did that transition into being your full-time gig?
Yeah. So in 2012, I had a real negative experience with one of my outside sales team members. And, I had tried lots of different CRM solutions. And I decided if I had an app that would log all the face-to-face meetings and all the calls and emails, I would have a better representation of what the sales team is doing actually in the field.
Hmm.
And so I started building with the development team, Call Proof. It's an app for field salespeople. And, it's one thing to have a sales team that you manage, that you see every day. You see them making calls, you're there answering their questions. But if you are trying to grow your small business and you are in the neighborhood, pulling on doors and going to see businesses, you really need a system to, number one, capture the information. And our system automatically imports name, address, and phone number automatically from Google. So it's super quick and easy to log that visit. And then we actually put a GPS stamp on it, so we know that that salesperson was actually there. And if they call them, we know they actually called them. And I was really solving my own problem with the software. And so we built that, and then built other tools for the inside sales team for my own organization to take the downtime that happens in retail and make it and maximize it by getting the team to call and follow up with existing customers and find new customers. And it had a tremendous impact on our bottom line using it internally.
Now you say, okay, this is kind of, and a lot of times it's always interesting, you build a tool and it's for out of necessity of, hey, we need this internally. There isn't the right thing out there. And so, we're left with either not or going without or building this. And hopefully, then you build it and it has a lot more efficiency and it's a worthwhile return. So now as you're doing that, you build it internally, you start to use it, it has a good return. What kind of prompted you to say, okay, now we're going to turn that and start to sell it or otherwise market it to other businesses that may be using it? Kind of what was that trigger to say, hey, we've got all these stores, we're running it, we're using it internally, now we're going to make this into its own business?
Well, honestly, I had several customers that I was selling phones to that would describe the same pain point. And it was all the same. If you want to grow your business, you can do it by you selling yourself, or you can find someone who's better at selling than you. Right. And you're not always going to find that, but there are really good salespeople out there that you can do that. And the problem that I had was very similar to what most people have. You train someone, you spend weeks and weeks teaching them every single nuance about your business. And then you send them out to the universe and just hope for the sales to come back in. And if you have a longer sales cycle, you really don't know if someone is good or not because the sales cycle is so long. Well, in the wireless business, if I go and visit with people 5 hours a day, pulling on doors, I know for a fact I will have 5 sales by the end of the day. I just know how the numbers work because I had been doing it so much, and I had, rep after rep that we would, train, onboard, and we wouldn't discover that they weren't really working for about 30 days after it was really too late, And so that's why we needed to build something. And I changed up my whole model, how I trained. My new model was I'd bring someone in, I'd spend a couple of days training. I would give them some template flyers that I'd print out a number on them. And I would have them go visit for that first week. And if they did the activity after that first week, then I would spend time and energy actually getting them trained properly. You got to see if they have drive first. Otherwise, you're going to find someone that's going to be very happy with a salary, but not do a lot of effort.
Now you say, okay, this is one that is solving your own problem. Solving the problem that was for you, and then also found that a lot of people you're working with or that were customers had the same problem to say, okay, too hard to bring someone on, wait a month or even sometimes longer for some sales position, only to find out that they're not effective. Now I basically paid them for that period of time. And you could have either one, if they were doing it incorrectly, give an opportunity to train, or two, to say, hey, we've got to cut our losses. They're not going to be the good fit for what we're doing. In either case, it provides that information earlier on. So you build that out, work it, do it internally. And then and I think this was about 2 or a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when you started to sell that to other individuals?
Oh no, we've had Call Proof going for since 2012. So, we're going into our 10th year, and we started selling it as soon as we built it for our own use. And then, as time went on, we we added a ton to the platform. So, now salespeople, I really have two customers that I have to service. The guy with the credit card, which is the company business owner who wants to grow his sales by scaling a sales organization. But my true customer is the sales rep. So I have to build a tool that is, number one, super easy for them to use. And number two, add more value. And in the app, we have a tool that makes it easy for them to identify prospects in the neighborhood. So we have 26 million businesses already loaded by industry, SIC code, employee size, that you can click one button. It shows you people that you could be likely selling to. So if I was selling to attorneys, for instance, I can hit the attorney button, click it on a map, circle it, and create a route so I can efficiently see a lot of people in my day and automatically log those visits as I go along. So the value piece is for sales reps to make sure they see more people and they earn more money, because that's ultimately helping them be more successful.
Sure. No, that definitely makes sense. Now, one other follow-up question to that is, so you had the stores, you had the cell phone companies, that was going along. You said, okay, we build this out of our own use, and we're going to use it for our own internal training for our sales, but also sell to others. Now, what was the tipping point? So I think along the way, at some point or more recently, you sold the stores or you shut those down or whatnot, and you made the transition to this being your full-time focus. So what kind of was the trigger, or what made or caused that transition?
Well, for me, I have been in retail for a long time in the business. I had people that ran the business, but I was, it's a very stressful business to be in retail. And in 2020, it was even more stressful. It was incredibly stressful during 2020. And in our business, not only are you making stores stay staffed, paying people and managing inventory and things like that, it has a lot of fraud and a lot of theft, whether it's an employee stealing or armed robberies in the daytime or organized crime rings at night, burglarizing it. It's a very stressful business. And that's ultimately when I started Call Proof back almost 10 years now. I made sure that I was going to be in a business that was not retail. So when I eventually were to sell, I would have a business that is definitely scalable, but does not have the stress on nights and on the weekends.
No, I think that certainly makes sense. So now you say, okay, COVID hits. First of all, it hit retail all really hard. You're now getting impacted with other, increase in crime, theft, and other things, and the stress. And now you're saying, hey, I don't know that I want to be in the retail game. I'd rather go and focus my time and talents, fully over here. So now, as you made that transition, maybe looking back just a bit, was it a good idea? Has it been one where as you put your full time and focus on it, the business continued to grow? Or is it one where it's also been hit? Or, because one of the questions I had is, cold calling works great. Other than if you were in COVID, then it's also going to be a hard one because people aren't going to be opening their doors, or they may be worried, or they're locked down or whatnot. And so have you seen something to where it's still continued to be able to grow and prosper? You've had to pivot, or how are things gone there?
Initially the first couple of months, we had customers that were, very worried, concerned. And then we navigated many of them into tracking their Zoom calls, and increasing the number of actual phone calls instead of face-to-face visits. But clients quickly realized that they had to be feet on the street, even during COVID, doing it safely with masks. And the business is growing faster than I would imagine it would have during COVID. And a lot of it has to do with the cold call. Now, I'm not talking about a phone call that's cold. I'm talking about a stranger walking in and talking about your products that you sell to anybody is the oldest strategy ever, but next to growing your business through referrals, which is by far the best way, but word of mouth, that is the best way. That next one is a physical cold call. And if you do it in volume and your team is taught the right way to do it, that constant awareness in the marketplace. If you have 100 prospects in your town that you could likely sell to, and you identify that, we help clients do that. We literally build their list. And then if you stay in front of those 100 clients in a nice, steady tempo, you're bound to crash into an opportunity and close more business. And so that's why people kind of flock to some kind of way to grow their business. And of all the tools you see online, like a drip sequence or, all these wigs bang things, whether it's Google AdWords or Facebook or online marketing, all those things can work. But right now there's a business in your neck of the woods that are a few blocks away. If you just pull on that door, hand out a card, there's an opportunity waiting for somebody.
No, I think that definitely makes sense, and sounds like it's a great and ongoing opportunity. So, well, with that, now as we've kind of caught up a bit to where where you came from, what your journey is, and bringing it up a bit into the present, it's a great time to transition to the two questions I always ask at the end of each podcast. So the first question I always ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what'd you learn from it?
I can look back and tell you some of the worst business decisions I made was under the influence of alcohol. Absolutely. I decided 5 years ago to stop drinking, and I have not looked back. For the first couple of years, it's always awkward going to a party or hanging out with people at a bar or in a social situation. But once you kind of get over that, that was good. But I can look at the business decisions that were made from emotions were always influenced by alcohol. And so I always say, whenever I have that question from people, and I've made a ton of mistakes, but I look at all of them and go, well, why did I make those? And it seemed to be a reoccurring theme that alcohol was involved in some way.
Well, it sounds like it's a lesson, and what's interesting, and I said, I personally don't drink any alcohol, but the industry that I'm in, which is a legal industry, has one of the highest alcohol or people that turn into alcoholics rate. And it's one where attorneys more often than not are in a bit of that same field of where when you have alcohol involved, it affects their practice. And that's oftentimes what leads to attorneys' downfall. So I think that there's a lot of wisdom in that, of looking and saying, hey, what are the causes or the reasons why sometimes things don't work out or I make bad decisions, and then how do I remedy it? So I think that's a great takeaway. Second question I always ask is, if you're talking now to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Number one, someone's already taken that journey before you. So finding someone who started something similar or in the same industry that you can become a mentee of, that you can learn from, and not having to recreate some of these experiences that someone's already walked that path. There's no reason to make the same mistakes.
No, and I think that oftentimes there's two ways that you can learn from mistakes. You can either learn from the mistakes of others, or you can go and make the mistakes yourself. And one certainly costs a whole lot more time, money, and effort, which is doing it yourself and learning them the hard way. Now, sometimes there's some lessons that you just have to learn, because it's one that you're not able to learn from others' mistakes until you make it yourself. But a lot of times I think that there's ability to see what others have done, what other mistakes they made or missteps they've had, and then be able to say, hey, now learning from that, I can get that much farther ahead and not have to recreate those. So I think that's a great takeaway. Well, as people want to reach out to you, if they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Yeah, absolutely. Best is email robert@callproof.com.
All right. Well, that's an easy way. Definitely encourage people to reach out, make those connections. And if you're in the market for assistance in cold calling and sales, and then his product would be beneficial, certainly a great connection to have. Well, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners, if you have your own journey to tell and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. Feel free to go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click subscribe, make sure if I can not get to it tongue twisted, make sure to click subscribe, like, and leave us a review, because we're really looking to share all these awesome journeys with all those other entrepreneurs out there to help them along their journey as well. So make sure to do all three of the above. And last but not least, if you ever need help with patents, trademarks, or copyrights, feel free to go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Thank you again, Robert, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thanks, Devin. Take care.